getting into an agency, just as any business, getting customers, right? It can seem daunting. And for government contractors, getting into an agency, that can seem pretty daunting. But one thing I really want you to remember is that it's daunting for people at all different levels. It's in daunting, you can change that word into anything, like sometimes it's anxiety ridden or whatever, but even large businesses struggle. If they're in an agency, maybe they've got some traction. But I've literally watched Booz Allen, a multi-billion-dollar company, trying to go in and get into a new agency. And I've watched their senior folks, like senior associates and principals. And so they've shifted their structure a little bit. But these senior people with 20 years of experience, 15, 20 years of experience, who are nervous going in, or they don't quite know what to do. And that makes sense, right? Unless you have a plan, it can be a daunting process. And so I'm going to try to give you an introduction to a plan. I've done tons of training, so you can go watch a lot more. But today I'm going to be talking about a process, right? And when you follow a process as you try to get into an agency, and to have success and have meetings, et cetera, it's going to become far easier as you just keep working at it. And your chances for success are obviously going to increase. I'm going to let me share my entire screen today really quick. Okay. So in today's training, I'm going to walk us through what I'm calling a step-by-step guide for selling into the federal agency. And really, it's one part of a step-by-step guide. And like I said a minute ago, there's a lot of other training. But today I want to cover down on 3 different things that you should be thinking about as you're trying to get into a new federal agency. The first thing is how to triage an agency and then create a roadmap for going into that agency. And so I'll explain what I mean by triaging an agency as we go forward. But literally, it's trying to understand that agency, right? Second thing I'm going to talk about are the people who can get you into that agency. So how do you find these people at an agency to call? And then the last thing I'll talk about is how do you call them, or how do you reach out to them? I'll give you a couple of steps on how you can land meetings with these people you have found earlier. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you, government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results, and that's what I want for you. These trainings are designed to give you those repeatable, predictable processes that lead to the results you want. If you haven't done so already, make sure you sign up for our Government Contracting Success newsletter. Love to have you on there. It's where we share a lot of information that'll help you in the federal market as you're doing business development, capture, et cetera. The other thing is, I just want to thank those of you who registered for training. I think we had 100 people, almost 100 people, a little over, register for training. When you do, simple thank you to us. So we appreciate that. Second thing is, you're growing your community. Every time you tell somebody else about something that you like, these trainings, for example, LinkedIn pushes the word out and more people come in. So if each of us is telling our own network about this, then 99 people are bringing their network to your world. And that's how we grow a community. That's how you grow your network. By the way, a quick aside, I'm probably not going to do training on July 4th week. I think I might take a bye week. Okay, so let's begin with just talking about how to triage an agency and then to create a roadmap based off that agency. And the first thing is, when I say triage an agency, what I mean is you're trying to figure out which agency to go in and sell. And once you determine the agency you want to go into, you want to triage the parts of that agency so that just like you don't want to sell to every agency in the federal market, you don't want to be selling to every office in a particular agency. If I use the Navy as a quick example, the Navy has 10 buying commands. You don't want to be selling into each one of the buying commands because only a couple of them buy what you sell. For example, if you sell supply services, et cetera, NAVSUP, Naval Supply Systems Command, that might be an ideal one. If you're in IT, NAVWAR, Naval Information Warfare Systems Command, that is an ideal one, right? And so there's these one-offs, but triaging is really reviewing the organizational structure and understanding it in a way that can help you decide which offices are the right ones, which ones would you work with, which ones are spending on things you're doing. So I'm going to go in 1 second and show you a little bit of how I do this. But that first part is understanding the organization. So I'm going to go in and look at DHS. The second thing is you want to look at the spending patterns of an agency. I'll show you how to do that in USA Spending. If you're not familiar with that, usaspending.gov, it's a tool that government uses to share information about the money they've been spending. And so we can go in there and learn a lot about DHS, as an example today, on their spending patterns. And then also I want to show you how you can flip that around. Maybe you're trying to determine the agency, the department you want to work with, or the agencies within a department. You can look at keywords, and I'll talk about this. I'll show you briefly, but keywords are my favorite way of searching because NAICS codes and PSC codes, they're so broad. They bring a lot. The government has to use only a few amount of codes to cover down. But when you think about keywords, they can get a lot more specific. And so I want to show you that way of looking at an agency and beginning to create a roadmap on that. So let's go ahead and switch over so I can do a little show and tell. So usaspending.gov is where you want to go. Again, I'm showing you the data, not how to use USA Spending, but you click on Start Search, and I'm going to set up a filter. It's funny, every time you come back, you can see whether the government's doing new releases. This is a new picture. I've never seen that before. Okay, I'm just going to look at last year. Actually, I might look at the last couple of years, right? And the time period. Next thing I said I want to, next thing is I want to look at only contract awards, right? So that means I'm not looking at grants or other things. The last thing I want to look at in this particular example is we were talking about Homeland Security. So if I start typing it, Homeland. There we go. I was typing slow because DSBS is an interesting tool, and I was just trying to get it to come up. Okay, so the first thing that happens, wow, they've changed USA Spending. That's funny. Literally, they must have changed it the last day because I use this almost every single day. And it's funny, they used to have tabs going across the top. This is what I'm talking about, by the way. Never improve a tool to the point where you make it harder. All this functionality now looks like it's stacked on top of each other. Where I'm trying to go, the first thing I was trying to show you is when you look at DHS, you can see their spending. And so I'll have a little bit of a learning curve myself. But what I'm looking for here first is I want to look at the awarding sub-agencies. So basically, when I go into DHS, I can see the spend and how much is being spent. And I can notice that who are the top spenders. So the Office of Procurement Operations, that's headquarters, and the rest of them are all the different commands. And so you can see, or components. Components is just another way of saying agencies. So Customs and Border Protection, Coast Guard, ICE, FEMA, et cetera. So I can come in. Now I'm looking at that data and seeing it. The next thing I can do is click down and see on the NAICS code and how this is being spent. Hold on 1 second. Let me just go back and remind myself. Okay. So here I'm looking at spending patterns on which NAICS codes are they spending the most on. So you're able to see in here, let me zoom in a little bit for you, right? I can see that they're spending a fair amount of money on security guard services, and then right up there, $5 billion, nope, $10 billion. So at least $10 billion right there on computer-related stuff. That's a good sign for those of you in the IT space. And then when you look at the commercial buildings activity, so you can see the spending pattern. I'm not going to go through this because you can look at it deeper. And if you come down, I'm assuming you just keep going to the next page. So if you don't see what you're doing, so like right here, temporary help services is something a lot of people do. That's basically staffing, right? When you think about temporary help. Well, DHS is doing $700 million. And for the fun of it, let's go in here and look at, let me reset my search a little bit. No, I'll actually have to research it. I'm going to tighten it down now. And I'm going to say in DHS, show me how much is being spent on that NAICS code. And so if I come down here and I'm looking at the spending patterns, so there's temporary help services I just put in. I'm going to search it again. Come on, USA Spending. Do your job. I'm doing mine. So, okay, I got to put that NAICS code in. So if I just type it in, I select it again, it's all good to go. By the way, if I have problems, you'll have problems. It's just sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Good. So here, when I come in, let's say I'm looking at that NAICS code for temporary help, right? If I come down, I can do the same thing and I can say, well, show me that the sub agencies that are in here. And I can see right away, this is amazing, right? This is eye-opening even for me, is 665 million goes for CBP. I'm assuming a lot of it's going to protection or some of the other challenges we have at the border, right? So that's a massive spend. If that's your business, that's a huge, huge interesting thing. And actually, I just assumed it was like security of the border, but there's a whole separate set of NAICS around security. So I would dig into this. But what I'm trying to compare it to, and I want to show you, is if I come down and I look at the NAICS code differently, excuse me, the spending. Let me back up and set the context really quick. I have a company, they do temporary support services, right? And in this temporary support services, they do American Sign Language. So that's a temporary gig, but it's very niche down. And so let's go ahead and type that in and see what that looks like. So, one thing I wanted to do, bear with me as I try to find. So here, all that money that's being spent, I can see it was done on 247 contracts, right? That's what that was. And if I zoom back out here, and I type in American Sign Language, excuse me, and I get that guy in, and I'm going to get rid of this NAICS code really quick. Down here, that guy. So as I get rid of the NAICS code, now I'm typing down into specifics. So I'm able to see that in this particular case, we're looking down from 600 million and all these bigger ones down to American Sign Language. This is a huge signal as well, right? I'm able to look in and see what kind of money is being spent. And there's not a lot of money being spent on sign language using the keyword sign language. Actually, let me make sure I'm saying, I think I'm using, it's all keywords. But one of the things I know about FEMA for my customers, that's a scary customer, but it is an eye opener that you can see the money being spent. And the last thing I'll show you is just down here. I'm able to take a large amount of contracts and boil it right down into a specific set. So if I'm trying to get into DHS and I'm trying to triage where they're spending the money on this type of service, I can come in here and look at USA spending and begin to understand it. If you haven't done so, come into USA spending this week, next week, and get used to it. Looks like they did a whole update and they've made changes. The one button that sometimes is hidden is over here. You can say, show me prime awards and sub awards. Just take your time to come in here and look at this. Okay, so let me come back to one of the last things I just want to say is like keywords. When you go to search for anything you're trying to do, always make sure you're learning how to search on PSCs, how to search on NAICS codes, and then really maximizing keywords. This is why we teach you to understand the keywords buyers would look for from you in order to reach you. Okay, so we'll go back to the browser in a second, but I wanted to talk about the second step in just really understanding how to get into agencies, et cetera, is you need to find the right people at an agency who are going to take your phone call, right? When you just call one or two people, you're not going to have that much luck. But when you think about the amount of people it will take for you to really get into an agency and have access in there, beginning winning contracts, et cetera, all of that activity takes you finding people who will meet with you and then developing those into strategic relationships and then hearing about opportunities and responding and winning. But it begins with putting together a list of 1 to 200 people. And when you have these 1 to 200 people, some of them won't answer the phone or talk to you, and some of them will. And so you're giving yourself enough to have the people who don't answer or who say no. I put it here in the 7-step process that I teach. This is called targeting. So the first thing we did with triaging was research. Now we're doing targeting and we're trying to figure out who are the best people to call. So one of the places you can go look is the GovCon Chambers directory. If you come in here to our website, so govconchamber.com, you'll find the directory right here under small business specialists. So you can just download that. By the way, I forgot something horribly, and I shouldn't have forgot, but we're updating the directory right now. 1,400 names in the directory, and we're updating it, freshening it for June 2024. I guess we're going to go into July by the time the project's done. But we are updating this directory, and we're doing it with 200 volunteers. 200 people, you have reached out, and we just want to say thank you very much. I meant to have a whole bunch of names up on a slide that said, hey, these are the people getting traction, but I'll make sure I save it for when we got a good training and a good amount of people, and I can say thank you in the proper way. But for those of you helping, we really appreciate it. And those of you who are looking forward to getting this directory, know that we're going to release a new one in a couple of weeks, probably 2 weeks. But come to our website, download that directory. Okay, so the second place you can go is, if we're thinking about DHS and you're trying to find people, is you can go to the website for DHS, and I'm going to show you how to do that, or we can go to LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, I want to go tighter. Somewhere I just know is the Navy has an organization called Program Executive Office, or PEO Digital. And I want to show you how I can go down and find a bunch of people's names that just get the process started, right? Many of the names I get, I might not be able to find emails or phone numbers, and so they come off my list. But you have to start somewhere, and I'm going to show you where to start. So let's come over here to, might as well go here, dhs.gov. Let me back that up a little bit. So I don't want to just tell you where it is. I want to show you how I discover it. So I'm coming into DHS. I'm looking for people. So the first thing I might do is go to About to see what I can see. So I like Contact Us. I'm going to click on that really quick. Organization's always good. We've got leadership. And then what I'm looking for is somewhere like where they might have people. So I'm just, there you go, for businesses. That's a good one. And then this is just in focus, what they're doing, news and topics. That's just border security. Okay, so hopefully these will lead me where I want to go, right? So I come over here. Sorry, I just saw something that caught my eye. I come over here, and I might have got exactly what I want just by coming to Contact Us, because DHS does such a great job. So here I can come in and start looking at some of the information they have. So I'm coming down. Here's department white pages. I don't know what that is, but if you're not old enough, white pages are a phone book. So let's go see. And then these are services, and then component agency contacts. I like that. And this looks like it's just the same thing, but differently. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving to the right on here as I'm trying to find people. This one here is direct contact information. That's no help. But if I come here, this is no help, because this is just giving me the lists. And these are just telling you about travelers, et cetera. So that guy's no good to me. If I come here, what I'm learning about are the major offices. So I don't have people's names yet, but I am able to see some of these offices and maybe figure out how to get in. So this is a more generic way of getting in, but it's still not what I'm looking for. But let me scale to the bottom really quick. Okay. And then here I come into component agency contacts. And so let me just click on FEMA and see if it opens up well for us. No, so all these ones are kind of generic. Let me back up. And then here, okay, so now I'm starting to get traction, right? So now I'm in leadership, and in leadership, I can see people's names. Let me zoom in really quick. So you don't want to be calling Alejandro the secretary of DHS. You're not going to get any traction, and he can't help you because he doesn't buy anything. His team is direct reports and way down. But if I start coming down and I do strategy or policy, for example, I can start coming in. I'm like, oh, here's an assistant secretary for infrastructure, risk resilience. I've got this person's name. I can just take it away and see if I can learn more. Who are they? I think all of these are just bio sheets, and I'm not going to click on them because actually, let me just click on one really quick. If it's a bio sheet, I'll stay away. I don't really care about people's bios. I don't care where they went to college, where they used to work. Okay, so this person here, this stuff is no help to me. And it's also just keeping it within the leadership of DHS. And so it's too high level. But you can see here, right? I'm able to see a lot of people's information as I'm coming down. And some of these deputy assistants, they're fine. You can reach out to them, or you can use them to find their direct report. So then I come into business, right? And here, show me a point of contact in here. Work with DHS, science, technology, verify, find, apply grants. By the way, if you ever wonder why we put out the directory I showed you, it's because of this. DHS actually does a good job at helping, but it's hard to find, right? It takes time. So here, let's go business information and contacts. Over here, I'm looking on the side. So there was business information. And I'm looking in here to see if I can show you more POCs. Forecast of contract opportunities is another good one. Prime contractors. Let me end with these three that I'll show you for this slide. So here I can come in and now I'm starting to find, it's funny. Now I can start finding people, right? This is killing me how they keep making you go somewhere. Let me open that guy. Here's the 𝗧𝗢𝗏 staff, same thing. Let me open it. Some other ones that are really helpful that I'm not seeing pop up here, but I know that they're in here, are folks who are in the contracting side. But now I'm starting to find the names, right? You see how many times I had to click through. Now I'm finding all these people, David and Demetrius, I bet. If I come down, I'm able to find a bunch of people who can now start getting me in the door. If I come over to the Office of Small Business, Darlene Bullock and her team are over here and they make their contact information freely available. So if you're asking about the Mentor Protege program, right? Or if you're a woman-owned business or a veteran-owned business, like right here, I would call Audra, right? So you have these people that are out there. This thing I think is, oh my gosh, that was such a long, warning. The last thing I just want to show you is when you come into a forecast like DHS in particular, you can click on one of these opportunities, and in here, it shows you a POC. And so now I'm finding more and more people. Sometimes these POCs are small business specialists or contract specialists. Sometimes they're program office folks. But this ability to go to a website is really important. And the last one I want to go to really quick is LinkedIn. Remember I said PEO Digital. If I want to go find PEO Digital and I'm trying to find POCs or people, here are companies. So if you search in LinkedIn, I can find companies. I know this is the one I'm looking for. And so PEO Digital is this small organization within the Navy. And so when I click on the employees here, now I'm able to see 63 folks. I know they said they had a lot more, but here's 63 people somehow related to PEO Digital. From them, I can find other people and I can figure out how it's lined up, right? They don't have phone numbers and emails in LinkedIn, but you can get Sarah Swift's number, who's in charge of enterprise networks, right? Or works with that. I can go find her on the Navy site or on Google, et cetera. All right, so let me back this up to my slides. And the last thing I want to talk about, well, I don't have time to talk about this, but if you want to be on our wait list, go to govconinAbox.com to see about new tools we're dropping, whole new web-based solutions for small business. Love to talk with you about it, but I don't have time because I want to teach you. The last step I want to make sure you hear about is steps to land meetings. And these are just 3 simple steps that you can take that makes landing meetings easier. We work with a lot of different customers who are at different levels of skill set and experience, and consistently the ones who follow the process are getting in the door, right? They're getting in the door 20% of the time, 30% of the time. Anything more than that exceeds the statistics, right? So 20 or 30%, 2 or 3 people out of 10 who are saying yes, or 20 or 30 out of 100. And so you can engage on LinkedIn like those people I just showed you. I could engage with their content for a little while, and I can begin to warm the relationship up just by seeing them at a conference kind of thing, but LinkedIn being the conference. And then I can follow them on LinkedIn, which notifies them, or I can engage them on LinkedIn asking for a connection request. So buyers are out there. Many of them are willing to connect with you and engage on LinkedIn. The second way that you can land a meeting, and especially this whole idea of warming up somebody to having a meeting with you, is just get an introduction. Obviously, if you can get an introduction from somebody inside, that's great. But I was just talking with a customer yesterday who was talking with somebody, a friend of a friend talked to a friend, but a customer was talking to somebody at the National Guard at a state level, and they're really not going to go anywhere. I said, go back and see, because they were super helpful. I said, go back and say, hey, do you know anybody at the National Guard Bureau, or whatever it's called, National Guard Bureau? But do you know anybody up there? So you can get an introduction, because they could say, sure, happy to make the introduction. And so you can reach out to small business specialists to get introductions. You can reach out to the SBA and talk to the business opportunity specialists or the procurement center representatives, PCRs, or you can talk to the PTAC counselors. These people are all willing and able to make introductions. As long as you build your relationship with them, they'll help you when they can. And the last one, most obviously, is get those 100 names, 200 names, pick up the phone and ask for a meeting. 80% of them are going to say no. That's fine. That's sales. If you pick up the phone and call consistently, you will get yeses. And once you have enough yeses, you won't have to pick up the phone so much anymore because the yeses will start introducing you. If that makes sense, right? So you only have to pick up the phone and do cold calls in the beginning. Once you've got a good rhythm, people will just introduce you to the other people. Here's what I want you to remember from today's training, right? The first thing is pick an agency. If you're trying to develop relationships, get in, et cetera, focus it on one agency because one person knows another, all within the same agency. Second thing is know that agency's spend, how they spend it, and who they spend it, or who within the agency spends, a department. So like the components of DHS, know where that money is being spent out of and which offices are spending it. The last thing is, don't forget this, right? Government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. And part of the process, step 3 here, is picking up the phone. The other part is having a great weekend. I hope you have a great weekend. Don't forget to join the waitlist, GovCon in a box. I will see you the next time I do training, which is probably the week after next.